What's up, guys? In this video we're going to talk about a crazy price target for Bitcoin. We're talking about millions of dollars in like a decade. Is it possible? Is it absolutely ridiculous? We're going to talk about that. We also the other day received PPI and CPI, and it really didn't move the expectations of rate cuts much, surprisingly. And we're going to talk about part of the reason for that. Now, the other day on the 14th, we received PPI, and it did go up much more than the forecasted 2.5%. Our last read reached 2.3%, very close to the Fed's target. However, that was actually revised up to 2.4%. And our release on the 14th here was a 3.3%, not going in the right direction at all. And looking at CPI, it came in under expectations. This was a 2.7%, expected to be 2.8. Still a bit off from the Fed's 2% target for inflation. And probabilities for a rate cut in September are still right around 90%. The day before, likelihoods were a little bit higher, and I believe the PPI inflation read was part of the reason for this tick down. But the day before, it was 92% with an 8% chance of leaving rates current. Now we're at a 90% chance of a cut with a 9.2% chance of leaving things current. And by end of year, the market is anticipating 2 to 3 cuts, most likely, with leaving rates current as a abysmal 1%. Now, there is more than one reason for the likelihood of rate cuts. Labor data has been getting worse. Jobs numbers have been revised down dramatically in some cases. I think also one of the reasons, however, is this dissent. We had 2 Fed governors dissent. Christopher Waller and Michelle Bowman casted dissenting votes, and they were in favor of giving a 25 basis point cut. So the Fed is not in complete agreement about leaving rates current. Some are ready for cuts, and I do believe we are getting close to them, with September being our first rate cut in quite a long time. Now, I did talk about this yesterday. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, had to walk back a little bit of what he said. So yesterday he basically said that the only way we're going to acquire Bitcoin is by seizing it from illegal activity, so on and so forth. Well, he walked that back essentially, saying that in addition, the Treasury is committed to exploring budget-neutral pathways to acquire more Bitcoin to expand the reserve. And he is getting roasted in the comments. But I wouldn't read too much into this. Exploring a budget-neutral ways, what does that mean? If you're buying something, it is not neutral to your budget. And Bitcoin really doesn't need the US government to buy it. There are plenty of buyers lined up. There wasn't much to that last article. He just kind of changed what he said, or attempted to clarify what he said, really. Who knows what the US will do in a budget-neutral way to acquire Bitcoin. Now, we do have this study saying that Bitcoin could reach 4.8 million by 2036. You're talking about in roughly a 10-year period. And this article believes it's quite feasible to see a $4.8 million Bitcoin price tag. And this simulation sees a maximum price point of $14 million by April 2036 with 10 million Bitcoin in circulation. It suggests that there's a 75% chance, so a 3 in 4 chance of exceeding a $4.8 million Bitcoin price and a $100 trillion market cap by April 2036, with the price reaching $1 million in mid-2027. So basically in the middle of crypto winter, they expect this to be $1 million, or about a 9x or so from here, within like a year and a half or so. If this reached $5 million per coin, that would put the market cap at almost $100 trillion. Currently, Bitcoin is 1/10 the market cap of gold, and $100 trillion is basically 5 times that of gold. So Bitcoin would have to 10x to get to gold's market cap, and then it would have to do a 5x from there to get to 5x gold's market cap. In my opinion, that is extremely unrealistic. And this is in a period of 10 years. In 10 years, can Bitcoin reach gold's market cap? I think that is very possible. A roughly 10x for Bitcoin, bringing it to $1.5 million by 2036. I think that is very doable. That is possible. Can Bitcoin reach $100 trillion in that time? I would say no, but I would love to be proven wrong. From cycle to cycle, as time progresses, as we get forward in the cycles over time, you will see less gains per cycle. As the market cap grows, it's that much harder to get insane multiples of the past. This cycle, we're almost at a 10x from the Bitcoin bear market bottom of 15K. I suspect that's what we're going to see this cycle, is roughly a 10x from the lows. What did we get from the lows in the last cycle? Bitcoin gave about a 20x. And the cycle before that, about a 100x, unless I'm in the wrong place. Could be more, could be less. But a nearly 10,000%. This is diminishing returns. As things get much larger in market cap, usually the multiples you get will be a little bit less. And it's the same with Bitcoin. As cycles progress, we will get less multiples. And think about this. If, say, we get into 2026, 2027, maybe Bitcoin actually does see a crypto winter. We follow the 4-year cycle. It follows through. And Bitcoin drops, say, to, $70,000, $80,000 or something like that. From a run to 150, nearly loses 50% of its value. From that $80,000 to the next peak in, say, 2029, which would be the projected peak following Bitcoin cycle, if it was at $80,000 and it runs to like $500,000, that's only a little more than a 5x, which would be reasonable considering this cycle is almost a 10x, and we're going to likely see diminishing returns as the cycles progress. A 5x is still nothing to shrug off. It's still fantastic, but we are going to get less gains, in my opinion, as the cycles move on, as Bitcoin stabilizes and has less hard drops. And that's what I don't get about people hoping that there's no crypto winter in the future. Why would you hope for that? If we don't see a real crypto winter and we don't see a good pullback for Bitcoin, then the multiples in the next peak of next cycle are going to be that much smaller. I would love to see Bitcoin pull back to 50K and then run to 500K and give us another 10x next cycle. The more it drops, the more multiples you can get in future cycles. But as Bitcoin gets larger, as Bitcoin gets more and more adoption, it becomes more stable. The drops will be less, and the gains every bear market bottom to top will be less as well. So I guess my point of this video was, don't put too much thought into these crazy articles saying that Bitcoin's going to be like $100 trillion market cap. One day, sure, but in like 10 years, is that very doable? I don't think so. I'd love to be proven wrong. Let me know what your thoughts are. Can Bitcoin get to a $100 trillion market cap, about $4.6 million Bitcoin, in 10 years, or is that just a little too optimistic? And what do you think about Scott Bessent's comments? Are we going to see some budget neutral way that the government is going to acquire Bitcoin, or is it just going to be from illegal activity, seizing people's Bitcoin from ill-gotten gains? And what do you think about the Fed? Are we going to see a rate cut in September, or with this recent economic data, CPI and PPI ticking up, is it that much less likely? Surprisingly, the market sees a abysmal chance of no rate cut and a very high likelihood of a rate cut despite this inflation data coming up. That was part of their dual mandate, seeing inflation low and seeing employment being stable, which lately doesn't seem like the case. Employment is going in the right direction for rate cuts, but inflation is not. And there's clearly a lot of uncertainty within the Fed members. Some are calling for cuts, some are not. Thanks as always for watching this. Sorry I was a little all over the place here on this one. Hopefully you guys have a good weekend, and I'll see you on the next one.